for now, I want to try to get through the breadth and not deep dive. So can you just put a note saying like understanding the scenario for these ones and see if we need to actually fill a gap? Because I want to just continue through.
Yeah, that's what it's doing actually. It is looking through the binding flags of public, non-public, instance, and static and figuring it out. Like by default, it does that. And if you give it a binding flag, it's just using that particular one.
Yeah, but I don't know what it does with it for getting value.
Yeah, I'll take a look offline. Yeah. Interestingly, it's not passing in the culture info. Okay.
Now we switch screens.
Yes.
So I can't see what's going on.
Yay. Property.
You want to send me what you have so far?
She added a couple of notes, but those aren't important for her to activate for now. Just open up the ones in the link she sent.
Suppose that's the second one, right?
Open both the links that I shared. The MS Code.
That's the
Yeah,
one, right?
that's the updated surface area and the first one. You're looking at the first one.
Oh, you're looking at the first one, right?
Yeah. First.
The one that is ginormous in size.
Yes.
Always good to do that. All right, let me see. Nice. All right. So
Leave it at property info.
try to move this guy over. And so question is, which one did you look at? The operator?
Property info.
I think it's the wrong one, right?
Yeah, this is not the one.
The other one not open yet? Oh, it did. On the wrong screen. Let's look at that guy then. And just for good measure, let me copy that on the desktop so we don't have sudden crashes. Is the property info?
Yes.
There we go.
And we were discussing the binding flags one.
Which one?
We were discussing the get value and the set value. It's taken binding flags and the binder.
Yeah, we are discussing why get value takes culture info as a parameter, which doesn't show on your screen but it does take culture info. Also, like, what is object index?
Well, properties have indexers, I think. So that's the index piece. You can actually pass in different. Some properties have
I
indexers.
see, yes. This is for like a multi-dim indexers.
Yeah.
I see.
So I think she's going to follow both the line to figure out if there's any scenarios that we need to care about for that. And if we do need it, like, it'll have to, if it has to remain, either way, we'll have to go into the extensions, I think, because we don't want the culture dependency.
But do we know what this culture, like,
It would be how would
let me just search MSDN.
we work around the culture dependency at all?
Well, if we put it into an extension, we're okay with extensions having.
Contracts also
I
currently.
know they don't, but they're the type extensions at least.
No, it doesn't depend upon. Oh, okay.
It's a higher level, so we're okay with it taking dependency there if it's needed. If it's needed, we don't know if it's needed.
So as per MSDN, it says the culture is used to figure out the resource localization, but I don't know which resource it's talking
I
about
have no
here.
idea in this context. That's why we need to understand that by.
And what were the binding flags for?
The binding flags are being used to give information like in whether you want to invoke the method, but like particular invoke method or not. That is going to be associated with this object, but I don't quite understand what they mean by that either. So I'll look into the code to see what's going on there. I guess get and set would both be in this similar category. The set value.
Actually, try to
Yeah,
get
the set value is the same.
The
So
rest
what's
is
the statement then? Remove, keep.
I'll follow up on this.
We need to understand the thing, but
Here the question is why does it take binding flags and culture, right? I mean,
let's understand it better. No, we don't need to rattle on it for now. Is this the MS Corlin one? Yes. Okay. We've been going up right now. So I don't know why she started going from the bottom, but anyways.
No, because they didn't want to do the assembly first. So it was
Okay.
like, let's go in order at least, whichever order we follow.
And we have for the operators for this guy, we basically decided for everything beyond type at least, we want to understand if they're equivalent to equals, and if they are, then we're okay with having the operators. If they're equivalent, do they even need the operators?
Well, it's a preference, correct? Somebody calls operators.
No, but the quality operator calls object equals, which should be virtual, right?
Oh, you mean, I see, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. The only reason you ever need the operators explicitly is if you actually needed to make a behavior difference.
Its usage is
What do
actually.
you
You're saying, like, if that equals implementation is the default implementation, reference equality,
Yeah, so
then, okay.
it basically is not necessary.
I think the idea was that you wanted to force the call equals, right? So that you can actually tweak it. Because the default implementation is always reference equality.
Yeah, in an extensible world, I guess, if you want to change it, make it different, then yes.
I mean, the question is still like, what's the desired behavior? I mean, like, what does equivalency mean, right? I mean,
My personal opinion for now is leave the operators in the same bucket as extensibility until we figure out the story. I don't know that there's enough value to.
well, the problem is it would be a binary range.
Well, it's already a binary breaking. If you're talking about binary between desktop and .NET
So let's
Core.
say within .NET Core, just let's say you go to .NET Core, you compile. In V2, we make it actually you can inherit from the object model. Well, all your existing compiled code basically is equivalent called like reference equality. So if you now recompile the code, suddenly you get the new behavior. If you just take an existing binary, you get the old behavior. So now it's mismatching.
Isn't that the same though? If you just add extensibility to reflection, anyways, you're going to get into this world state.
Well, it depends on what you do with existing code. I mean, take existing code that, let's say, takes a property, right? If you just take the binary, you pass it in, and they do some comparisons, they will get reference equality. Now you recompile that binary with the other part being extensible, well, suddenly it calls equals, and that's whatever equals.
That's right. But if the same is true, if that property info wasn't extendable, now it is extendable. They're having different semantics for the comparisons.
Well, depends on what you mean by that. What I'm saying is that I think it's weird that within the .NET Core ecosystem, if I take a binary as is, I get behavior A. If I take the binary and recompile the source, I get a new behavior. I think that's odd. Forget about extensibility. Let's say extensibility was always there.
But so even if you didn't recompile and you introduce extensibility at one level, that you're getting an incorrect behavior from the qualities.
Well, potentially, depending on what like that's my other problem. I don't know what equals would do.
I think my uber point is that the quality thing is busted. When we introduce extensibility, you're going to get into either one state or another state. It's going to be broken.
I think my meta point is just I think changing equality is not what I would consider a very compatible change. So I think if we don't add the operators now, I would be very hesitant to add them in, let's say, a year from now. Because it's very subtle changes, right?
Sure. Well, but so equals is virtual. There are many abstractions. People can implement, equals however they want. if operator equals just calls equals,
No, it doesn't.
yeah, over time like basically your behavior of equals can change, and somehow people
Yes.
deal with
Whether or not you source compile it again or not, you're going to get a different behavior.
right? Like when you call basically these things on abstract types.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I think the way I still see it is that if you call equals, to me that's fundamentally different from reference equality, no matter what the implementation of equals does. Because like yes, once you opt into value equality, it gets a bit more fishy of what the semantics are, right? But I think reference equality is such a well-defined thing that what is what it is. I mean, like, is it the same instance? Yes or no? I mean, that's not subject for.
So if your argument is that we should just add all the operators and just have them forward to dot equals now, and then later potentially open the door,
I would think that's
We can do that.
more logical.
we can do that in some cases. We can't do it holistically though. We can't add them to type info, for example,
Well, we cannot also do
because
it.
it requires changes to desktop.
But we'll be changing the behavior also.
Oh yeah.
Well, also we cannot do it in cases where it would result in a change in
Yeah, exactly.
in a difference of behavior between .NET Framework and .NET Core.
Well, we already have a different behavior today.
Really?
Yes,
Where?
because the .NET Framework is extensible. So we don't have the operator equals. So we're getting reference equality today in .NET Core. You're not getting reference equality potentially in .NET Framework. Compatibility difference is there already.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
The equal to and not equal to operators whenever they are on the phone.
Right.
About all these systems.
There must be an FXCAP rule that says, equals should just be called
That's true.
equals, right?
There might be.
Should we be a bit more hardcore about enforcing FXCAP violations?
So we'd have to add exceptions to a whole bunch of places already in the existing framework.
What do you mean by exceptions?
Like double doesn't do that. Type.
Yeah.
Others don't do that. I don't know how many others we have.
Be a bit more hardcore because I realize we cannot just follow all of them, but
Yeah. So I'm still of the opinion that the operators fall under the bucket of extensibility. And when we talk about extensibility, we figure out what to do with operators.
So for now, we do not expose them.
That's my stance. But I just want to get agreement from the others.
I would say if we could add these operators and just call equals, I would prefer that. But then we would have to think what the
We can do that.
implication of.
We could do that for everything except for type info today, because we can't add that because of desktop changes required. So we could add them and just make them delegate to equals for everything except type info for today.
And you don't worry about the difference in behavior that it would
No, because
potentially.
we already have a difference behavior. So my opinion.
I guess I'm fine because there's no way to avoid this. We have a difference in behavior.
Yes,
That's it.
and we're gonna have in whether or not we add them now or later, we're gonna have a breaking change for the people who are currently depending on it. So.
And by difference in behavior, you mean between framework and .NET Core? Yeah, I'm more concerned within .NET Core because I think going from full framework to .NET Core, I mean that's not something you would necessarily expect to just work in all cases because there's so many other things. But within .NET Core, it would be nice to be able to say, from version 1 to version next, like we don't have random changes.
Well, but isn't this the kind of main objective for portable libraries?
Well,
This is the portable library surface. So I wonder, I don't remember, maybe that's why we removed those. Because we basically said, we want a surface area, you code to it,
Yeah,
it's portable.
They never used to exist in Silverlight, so they never showed up in Portable Library.
yeah, so I mean, I agree with you on principle. I would say if I would have to trade, I'd rather trade for more consistency within .NET Core with more consistency between framework and
Correct.
core.
I agree with you. I'm just
But,
saying
yeah.
what we could do is, decide we are not adding those, and the value of it is you have consistent behavior. Basically, this API introduces inconsistent behavior, no matter what we do. So maybe we don't want it. And API port just tells people to use that equals.
Yep. Yeah. Well, maybe if we just don't have the operators at all, and we always get reference equality everywhere, for when you're doing this, if you want to have the quality based on the object model, you have to call out equals yourself.
Okay,
That's at least a statement we can make that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Do we think in general that it's good to have double equal to something else?
We don't think it's good.
No, but we are already kind of stuck between the rock and the hard place. So now the only option to have, like all the objectives that we have, is to not add this API. And then the negative repercussion is that now people have to run API port, and it tells them to either use that equals or use object that reference equals, depending which one they want.
So is the only bad thing about adding it back is that it's inconsistent between dot equals and the operators? Like, why can't we just add it back and have it be the same behavior as desktop?
In order to get the actual behavior that you want from desktop, you have to have extensibility of the reflection surface area, because people can't
Why is
extend it today. Because I guess technically, if you can't extend it, it's the equivalent, assuming that the equals actually does the same thing. I don't even know if you don't extend it, if it does the same thing on desktop.
But so you can't override like the operators or anything like that.
No.
They're static methods.
That's right.
So they do one thing on desktop. Why can't we make them do the same?
You can
thing?
override. Well, they call dot equals on the base.
Yeah. So why
I
can't we make
assume.
them call dot
Can you
equals?
double check that?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Yeah, and so dot equals will do the same thing today if you didn't extend. So like if
Yeah, and then if we added extensions, it
But
would
on
still
desktop,
do the same thing, right?
it would. It's just now a question of whether or not we think that's the right behavior when it's different.
Well, first we said that we will have a change in behavior anyway. Because today, if somebody calls that equals, they get the default one, the default behavior, which is reference equality. Now, if we changed it to do what desktop does, it would call into that equals, which potentially changes for code that
In theory, it would
already.
be exactly the same behavior if you weren't extending the type system in either side.
Correct, but if you're lucky, it could be the same.
Yes.
I'm basically just saying if we add those operators, existing code that already has been written may change behavior. It's a break.
On that core.
Correct.
In portable libraries.
Yeah.
It doesn't just call equals. It would be nice, but it says like if it's runtime property equals, they're never equal to each other.
Jeez.
For like, I don't know why that.
If one of them is.
All right, so maybe we just make it clear that for reflection, you call equals obvious object equivalence, and if you want the sort of semantic object model, you have to call dot equals yourself.
Yes.
What either side is not, right? Is
Yeah,
any
exactly.
smell or any
Any
other.
of them is
One of those
different.
crazy stupid things that are going to bite people in random places, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did you capture that email? No operators. We
Yeah,
just have to
I
document
basically
that.
just wrote equality is odd. So we're saying we're not adding any of them, which
That's right.
includes member info.
That's right. No operators, and we just dock the fact that there are always going to be object equivalents from the and if you want to inheritance, you have to call equals yourself.
Something tells me a year from now we will talk about this again and say, why did we do
This
this?
is only at least the fifth time we've talked about it over the last 5 years. So yes, I guess.
So one more question. If you code to the portable library, to our reference assemblies,
Mhm.
the compiler will choose the reference equality, correct?
Because it doesn't.
And
It
it
can't
will be
admit a call to this
It
operator.
will be different between if you code it specifically to, but at least it will be consistent, same
That's right.
behavior, portable, and
Compiling against our reference assemblies for portable library or .NET Core should make it consistent.
Scripting may choose something different there.
it still
that's
doesn't
example.
follow our guidance, which says if you override that equals, you should overload equals.
Well, to me, the guidance is
Make up
not
the system.
necessarily like the thing I'm concerned about. I think the guidance is just really, really good because it's like completely surprising. It's like, what do you mean double equals and dot equals don't do the same thing? But that's already true on desktop. Like it's not like you get slightly different behavior depending on what these types are, which is really, really, really weird.
All right. We beat that one now. For the get optional custom modifiers, get raw content, get required content. We're gonna add this back. Is that what we decided?
Next
Right?
month?
Which ones are you talking about?
there's 3 other get methods up there.
Yeah, we'll write
Those ones here?
the get option. Yeah, I think that's what we discussed.
They're gonna add them back, right?
Well, except we don't, oh, the get row
The
constant
final ones that
value.
are-
We'd have to understand, I'd have to see what it does for property info, but even if it does something weird, I don't think there's anything that's harmful here, so.
So which one are you talking about? The property, the constant?
Get raw constant value.
Just get required custom modifiers, get raw, constant value, get option.
I wouldn't do anything crazy for property, for other special.
What's the raw constant value do? I know what it does for field info, I don't know what it does for property info.
Get row constant value is weird.
I think it's probably what you put in and it actually build on top of it.
That's actually even more interesting than what, yeah, that's the decimal
It
thing.
tries to give you the default value of
Yeah.
the property.
It's a default data, yeah.
Yeah, let's add it, I don't,
I mean, required modifiers is normal in IL, option modifiers is normal in IL, so I mean, these are just exposing what's there.
so let's add this.
And modifiers, I think in reflection are generally a bit odd, because I don't think they exactly mirror the way it's encoded in IL, but that was always a known issue.
Sorry, what was the known issue?
But the way custom modifiers are expressed, like there's a certain order in IL which neither Rosen nor reflection completely mirror, but that's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about that. You sent me an email, right? If I can find it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did I put that?
There was one thing which we couldn't find the way to get around.
Reflection?
It's
That was the, get generic parameter things, right? Or what,
the token.
yeah.
And it's not as much about the token. I
Here we
mean,
go.
it was probably misused, but there was a way to distinguish like foo which takes t and foo which takes, I mean, foo that takes int and foo that takes t, which was substituted for int.
Yeah,
We
sure.
have rules which allow to disambiguate these calls, and now we cannot do betterness analysis. They look exactly the same.
We are adding metadata token back, but it's gonna throw them down anyway, so. That's not
That's
gonna
not
help you.
very useful.
But if the other APIs are there, we might see.
Any kind of API which will allow that, because that's probably the only missing piece for everything else.
Are there
we have
existing APIs outside of metadata token on desktop framework that allow you to do it? Because those are, right now, this API review is about exposing existing APIs, it's not about adding new ones.
Not sure that desktop API has anything other than token thing either.
Alright, so we might still be out of luck for
But
now.
that's a scenario for scripting, I suppose, right?
It's anything dynamic which does overload resolution at runtime. It's VB, late binding, it's C# dynamic. They both need this because they both support this scenario.
Is that a scenario where you actually care about M? Because I mean, chances are you can't do
Well,
anything.
we already had implemented
You get
differently
into
in
this
this.
accidentally fairly often. You just need to have two overloads which can combine through generic substitution.
No, I get that. What I'm saying is that if you run on native, like on .NET Native, right, with the core T type system, like you will not be able to do any meaningful resolution, right? Because like you can't really reflect on arbitrary types, anyways. That's my question. I mean, if you're
using like dynamic.
yeah,
See,
if you're
what
using
about-
dynamic and runtime, I mean that's
We don't. The workaround is basically we probe through private reflection for that method because sometimes it's still there, and if we find, we use it. But if we don't find it, we fall back into like, let's give a random answer. Test cases
Always a good
cases
fallback.
are disabled for this because
Okay,
they're
yeah,
noisy.
no, but like, let's say it only throws on the N type system at runtime, right? Like if you run at design time, I mean you'll still get the design time semantics, right? Which may be good enough for your case, depending on what you do.
It'll never work for runtime for non-native, it sounds like, without new APIs added. So
By design time, I mean things like immediate window in Visual Studio, for instance, things like this. I mean, like if you rely on reflection being there in all cases, that may not hold true anyway. So the fact that metadata throws, I'm saying, may not be your the actual problem. It may still be good enough for the majority of your cases. And the cases it would throw, I'm saying that probably dynamic or scripting itself doesn't do what you think it does because you can't find half the members on the type, or you cannot find the type at all because there's no metadata left to actually reflect on that.
I'm not sure I understand.
in either case, I think it's worth talking about this particular review, because I think we're gonna have to, it'll have to be a new API design in order to get the information you're looking for, I think. And
The
when,
new API is fine as well, providing the existing one is hard.
Well, we're gonna provide the metadata token API, we're deciding to expose it, but we're accepting the fact that it's gonna throw in cases like .NET Native. It already throws in other cases when you have dynamic things where you don't have tokens too, so you kinda have to, deal with it anyways if there's.
It's a bit worse because we will find it now in our workaround and
You have
we'll
to-
conclude like
yeah.
we have to use it.
You have to, well, you already handle it when it's not there today.
Well, it's not there, we handle by
Yeah, so you'll have to handle the
providing
exception.
random value, hoping that methods do roughly the same thing, which is often the case.
But it sounds like you scenario. I mean, something that modularly we can add any APIs. It seems like reflection should allow you to differentiate between a substituted type and an ordinary type. It seems like a general, genuine. Like,
There was some point, I thought, like Addy had suggested a potential workaround where you can compare, the generic instances or something like that, but that was not working or something as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a separate work item file for this one already? If we don't, we should do that to make sure it's
I think
clear.
that several bugs were filed against this over the history, and these bugs tend to be like bounced between teams because nobody knows who is actually responsible. Because on one end it means dynamic is deficient, on the other the API is missing, but it's not clear from the bug. So I'm not sure if we have currently an active bug. And
We should just get one file on GitHub, and I'm not going to guarantee when and if it ever gets fixed, but we should definitely look into it a little bit deeper, I think.
for us, it's annoying because it's a completeness issue. It's not like the feature is completely not working. It's something that sometimes working and it was working before. Why is it so hard?
We were depending on metadata tokens before, right? And even by the way, depending on metadata tokens is broken even on desktop when you generate. Like if you were ever going to do this from dynamically generated code, it would never exist. Metadata token scenario is broken too.
Yeah, I'm not claiming that was the right use of the API, but API was there and scenario was working.
Sure. But I'm just saying, even on desktop, it would be broken if somebody ref a metadata assembly that had an overload. It would be broken too. Metadata token would throw.
Yeah, perhaps something else like get original definition would work better.
Right.
how does metadata token actually work for you? Like, how do you differentiate between the substituted and non-substituted?
Don't remember the details. It probably just you could get to the original definition.
Yeah, they were trying to compare original definitions, but you couldn't. They weren't object equivalent, so they used a metadata token to do the comparisons.
If you query them, they should produce exactly the same.
Perhaps the way to handle this is figuring out the correct dot equals command to call for the original definitions.
Well, they're not equal. they belong to different types.
Wes, you have a very weird sense of humor. This made me really sad.
In a static compiler, you just get to the original definition and you immediately see that one is, well, it's its own original definition, but the other has unsubstituted types. So it's worse because of that.
Okay.
So this is mostly about parity.
Right now, basically, this particular review we're doing today is about trying to figure out how much of the reflection APIs we can bring back to .NET Core to kind of enable, because we removed a lot of things for various different reasons, and we're trying to fill those gaps. So.
Yeah, because we have a couple smaller requests, which are also probably better served by new API than bringing old ones.
Yeah, if it's brand new APIs requests, we should do them as separate requests.
It will be cleaner in some cases. Like
The other problem is, I mean, like, as Wes pointed out, like, we try to do it without requiring any changes to framework, because that means what we do right now makes life instantaneous better for everybody.
Typically, we don't have reflection in it, so we have to use interpretation, which is a major change regardless. Now, there are pieces missing to completely replicate the story. Like, we cannot invoke methods with, like, type missing, for example.
Go up, Hima.
Are we going from the bottom up?
Yes.
Avi, what the heck are you doing?
We wanted to discuss the easy types first. That was the property attributes is already
Just to be
exposed.
clear, API reviewer is not able to sort them based on concurrency, just alphabetic ordering. That would be a cool feature to have. So which one do you want to talk about then?
The next is property attributes, right?
I have no idea actually.
Yeah.
Property, this one.
So this is already exposed in primitives. It doesn't expose the reserved ones. I didn't see a reason why we should be.
If you rely on those, we really screwed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they should be have no meaning. Right?
The portable executable kinds get used in, there is an API somewhere on top which basically talks about telling you whether the executable, like some information about the executable in general, the architecture and other stuff.
What APIs is it exposed off of?
No, we haven't exposed that API.
I would be betting my life that there is some similar enum that we expose from reflection metadata.
Yes, it's very similar. But I'm just
Probably
wondering,
not the same.
I'm just wondering, it's not the same. I'm wondering if where we expose this from. Is it on assembly?
No, it was somewhere else.
Well, my concern is that we put this one in the reflection exposed already.
Oh, that way.
Oh,
I don't think they're
Would
exactly
be,
the same. But
No, they're probably not, but that doesn't make it better, does it?
I just thought it doesn't make sense to be in reflection.
How do I do that really?
Let's see, where is it exposed? Come on.
This is the guidance for equals. We've got,
yes.
and we've been following this, trying.
Yeah, damn it. I need to fix this bug.
Reference identity will be the best.
Yeah, it's in module.
The sequence would be better, right? Because that's what we're talking about. They're slightly different when they're extensible. Because we don't have the algorithms, we don't have the operators.
Because we have a bunch of code like that. We now need to come.
You need to call that equals now, because that's
Be very careful, and it's really easy to miss.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, it's better not be there than it to be at least a compiler.
Well, the compiler is always going to office object of references, so I don't know how to prevent that.
But if there is a reference identity, then it's fine.
Alright, so it seems like we should probably take it offline and like look at what this guy.
I think it's used in module. It's there's an API get PE kind or something. But I was assuming we would want to use runtime information for these cases. Why would we want to use system reflection here?
But this is just talking about the object. You already have an assembly object or a module object in this case.
Yes.
It might be interesting based on that.
It seems we have different contracts trying to solve the same problem. No?
Well, I don't know if it's the same problem. When you're in the metadata space versus when you're in the space that you're trying to determine which architecture you're running on. Slightly different. In particular, like preferred 32-bit, like that's not something that we expose in runtime information at all.
Wouldn't we
It's
want
a special
to?
bit. No, it's a special managed IL bit.
Building it, yeah. Okay. Pointer is an interrupt scenario. We wouldn't want to expose it in reflection.
Yeah, I think it's.
I think
want
it's
to print
already
out that
exposed. Let me double check. I think it was
It's already exposed where?
in interrupt services, if at all.
Stormbox?
Okay. Just keep going up.
Did you put that in for yourself?
Pointer?
Yeah.
Don't remember.
Because the fact that it's a class and it's iserializable makes me already like scratch my head.
If you go on top, parameter info, yeah.
So LCID is definitely, we should exclude still because that's basically a foreign things.
All the impulse one I've removed.
See, these are raw fields. Wow.
The get custom attributes are already exposed via system reflection extensions.
Yeah, and they have a different return type, so we can't put them in the core. We've already talked about this in a couple other cases. Get custom attribute data? Why?
It was similar to the I didn't include it because it was a compiler scenario, but we've already discussed it for property info, so we can probably add it here as well.
Which one?
Oh,
The get required custom modifier and get optional custom modifier.
I wasn't actually talking about that one, but yes, that was the next. I was asking about get custom attribute data.
That is also exposed via get custom attributes. It's not the same thing, but it's an extension method. This was also discussed during typing.
I know it was, but I'm wondering is there a reason why we don't want to expose it as is too? Just from exposing it. I know that's already existing property that kind of does the same thing, but the property is called it's called.
Get custom attributes. Get at, something, let me see what it was called.
The only weirdness with this one is that it returns an I list. I don't know. Which seems a little odd, but.
This one you also would expose?
That's what I'm asking the question about right now.
Didn't we already say we can't expose those guys because we already have extension
No,
methods?
the ones right above it, that's the case because they have a different type identity and they match the signature. I mean, so they have a different return type.
The return object already.
Yeah. Whereas the overloads with the exact same signature return, well, minus return type, return strongly typed. But get custom attribute data is not in that bucket.
So why would we not add it?
That's what I'm asking. I would add it unless there's a reason not to.
We chose not to add it earlier.
But I know that on member info we expose there's a property called custom attributes.
Yeah, something
Which
like that.
returns you an IEnumerable custom attribute data. That was part of the reflection changes that he had added, but I still think that there's no reason not to add it.
I see. So you're saying,
They don't conflict by name or anything, but they provide you the same information essentially.
Quite frankly, given that the one we have a member info, we edited 4.5, makes it a really
And,
young
and,
API.
and the other thing is that it always asks the question of, it's called custom attributes. Why is it giving me custom attribute data? And this one's actually asking for data, which is what people were asking.
but now that you said that, I think we are introducing problems if we basically have two APIs that do exactly the same thing. Because it just basically now,
We already have two APIs.
like, what is the difference between those?
We already have two APIs that do the same thing. It's just a matter of what we expose it in the contracts.
Yeah, so, like contracts is our surface area. I think maybe we should just add a line to API port tool and tell people to use the other API.
Even in our, we do have the case where we're going to have extensions and members on the base that are doing the same thing too.
We should try to avoid those.
I prefer that they were only on the base, but we added the extensions before we decided to add things back to the base. But I would much rather them be on the base so that we can cut out the extensions in that case.
Because, it is a known problem with frameworks. People keep, whenever we have two members that do exactly the same thing, people, or appear to be doing the same thing, people keep asking, what's the difference? There are email threads, newsgroup threads, and just...
We have the same reverse, which is basically like, why don't you guys expose the custom attribute data anymore? Because
except that one, after 10 years, this issue will go away. The other one will not. The moment you have two members that do exactly the same thing, you're just basically inviting questions forever.
System reflection extensions and type extensions both are unstable. Like they both aren't marked stable. So why can't we remove stuff from there if we added the system reflection?
They are stable, by the way. They've shipped stable at least once.
The type
They should be
extensions
UWP.
wasn't.
I'm pretty sure they ship for UWP.
I didn't see type extension in our stable list.
What version number does it have right now?
Actually, that's a good point.
If it has something other than 4.0.0, it's shipped. Okay, so okay, custom. I don't know.
You see, for the simple changes, don't use this method, call this other method, nothing else changes. API port is such a good tool. We could even have rewriters that do it automatically.
Well, can you look and see what the member info custom attributes property returns? Does it call get custom attribute data and return the same thing? If it does that, then I guess.
Info dot, which one? Get custom attribute?
I want to see if it calls that method essentially.
The most annoying one, it does the same thing, but can tolerate different input.
Mm.
Like one is, can tolerate nulls, another doesn't.
Then you choose the one that is more tolerant.
Or the other way, and then you still have rules when to use one or another. It's more annoying.
Wasn't the extension property on custom attributes extensions?
No, this one's there's a custom attributes property on member info.
All right, there's 0.4% using that API.
Across all the different infos?
Look at desktop API port.
No, but across member info, property info, field info, parameter.
Well, it's a virtual. It will pretty much in all cases go to the base, so I just looked at member info. Versus the other one was, what is it called on member info? It's custom
I
attributes.
think it's called custom attributes.
Or get custom attributes.
No, it's just called custom attributes, the property.
So,
Yep, it's called custom attributes.
so custom attributes, unsurprisingly, is not used at all in UGET desktop and API port, but is used by 30% of the Windows Store apps.
Oh,
They use the APIs.
So, which makes sense because we killed the other one, and then
And if she can confirm to me that one's just delegating to the other one, I'm fine with them if they're consistent. If there's some, like, I know we also did some things like changing the filtering in some cases, so I want to make sure that that's not the case here.
I'm pretty sure that Mitch forwarded to get custom attributes data because that one was virtual, so there's only one way to do it. And I think the property actually is virtual too.
Are you looking at index?
yeah.
I would,
Yeah,
but
it's called get custom attributes data.
fine. If we're not exposing it, then remove that expose thing.
So which one? Where
Get custom attribute data, we're not going to expose.
I mean,
But for all of
Still a
those,
paper cut, though.
can we make a note that API ports should have a line for it? Like, let's capture the ones, like
let's
if
tackle that separately because I mean I think once we do
Once we
API
finish
port,
the service
we need to
port.
go over. As I said, my goal for API port is no blank cells.
makes sense.
Hopefully, remember that one.
Is defined as, do we
So LSID, we already talked about that, I guess.
Yeah, well, that one's basically a dead thing on culture info, from culture info. The LCID is something that's Windows specific and not planning on bringing forward anywhere in culture info at all.
I'm fine with.
I thought we decided to add back is defined though. I know
We didn't do that for type info, or at least I didn't catch.
so I know we weren't going to do get custom attributes because of the different return type, but is
There's no-
defined matches in signature, right?
Yeah, it does. It matches the
What do
signature.
you see as defined?
Right in the middle of that red block.
Get required custom modifier.
Oh, okay.
It's defined as the attribute type and returns it. We do have extensions for it. It's just some, like, I would add back to get custom attribute too if we didn't have the return type problem. So this is why I wonder about is defined.
So it's defined. We have exactly same extension method.
And it lives in system
It's
reflection
system
extensions
reflection extensions.
or type extensions.
Let me double check.
If you say so.
If it's in extensions, then I'm fine.
Yeah, if it's in the one that we basically said it's just for porting, fine. If it's in the one that we like this is our API, again it creates
Agreed. It's in type
It's an extension.
All right, so then let's not add it.
But there is one thing that I do not like about the get custom attributes and is defined is that when we go up, we'll see there is a type I custom attribute provider, which is the interface that is supposed to expose all these three methods. We haven't exposed that. Now we are going to implement these methods on it without that interface because we have exposed it by extension methods.
Let's decide if we want that interface. If we want that interface, we can potentially add them back as explicitly implemented on these guys to kind of get around the problem.
So, what would be the replacement for this guy?
Which one?
Is defined.
There's an extension method directly on,
Extensions.
and it's
So, but that one is, as you said, in the non-core part.
no, it is the core part. That's why I verified. So there's two parts. There's system runtime, system reflection extensions is part of core. System reflection type extensions, which is,
Type extension.
that's the one not in core.
Right. So then it's already exposed then. So we're
That's
already-
right. It's exposed in an extension already.
and
So
both of these constructs ship
They both have shipped.
as stable.
I'm pretty sure. Yes. I thought
extensions
so.
are pretty much shipped in Windows 8.
Yeah. Extensions, sure. Type extensions, I'm pretty sure as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have to think about the iCustom attribute data thing in a minute.
But why do you think it's defined as bad, by the way?
Why is it bad? No, it's just like I think we are running into a danger of creating a bit of a mess. Like there are extensions, there are
Yes.
methods on the type, and then the user looks at it and is like, which one
We
do I
are.
call and why? And like we should be careful.
But that has nothing to do with this API.
No.
The API is fine. Yes, it's just a matter of whether. I actually think the iCustom attribute data is going to actually save us.
Oh,
Because I was trying to figure out how we get around this problem when we enable extensibility for these reflection types. The way we do that is make them explicitly implemented via that custom that
so we
interface.
didn't want extensibility.
Not yet. But at some point,
In future, yes, I
there was a
agree.
problem we were gonna have to cross because custom attribute extensibility is one of the key things that people extend in reflection. And we need to have a way of providing that. Now, that interface is gonna be probably the easiest way for them to provide that extensibility.
What do you mean? Like, I mean, both the property as well as the method are virtual, so you can always extend that.
We're not exposing them here. They're
No, but we have the base exposed, right? Custom attribute data is a virtual property. You can override that.
yeah, but we're not exposing that because it conflicts with the strongly typed extension methods.
What I'm saying is, memory info already has custom attributes as a property, which already is exposed because it shipped in Windows 8.
That's the data. If we're building all these things off of the custom data, yes.
Custom data is different. That's not exposed via iCustom.
Yes, what he's saying is we could implement, the extensibility point could be,
Talking about the actual.
Via the
Yeah, that one is completely different. Yeah, I agree.
so we can cross that bridge when we get to it, but I think that's going to be an impossible way out. for when we get
Yeah,
to
so that's yeah.
it. All right, so I don't see anything else on here. Get real object is interesting, but that's all about serialization. Looks like.
Yep.
So we marked everything, right?
Now scroll up now.
I can find nothing. Is that again? Yeah. Scroll up. Of course, that's the direction we're reading.
Now we didn't look at the first red block.
Which one?
Those are all impl stuff. All right, so those are by the
There's
extensibility.
no way we're exposed to
Yeah.
that.
parameter attributes is exposed via primitives.
So I don't like reserve 4, but I want reserve 3. Is that required?
Check if there's a difference in usage.
You can't check the usage of because they're embedded as constants.
Well, then can we check whether people are passing these constants to?
So obfuscation attributes, like, aren't those used?
As per MSTM, they are just used by tools if they want to listen, like if they want to look at these attributes and do something with it. But
It is something I haven't heard a request for, but it's something that might be
why?
interesting at some point. I don't want it right now, by the way. I'm just saying.
And would obfuscation be something we would want in reflection? It's just, I agree that it's an attribute that you read via reflection, but why does it have
I
to
wish that-
exist on
To be
reflection?
fair, all the other assembly level attributes live in system reflection. I mean, that
Yeah, I've never, yeah,
because
I
you
didn't
reflect
really
over it to
think of
find them, I
assembly.
guess that was the idea.
but that way every custom attribute should be on reflection.
Yes, that's why it makes no sense. But no, I think obfuscation attribute was special case by, for example, IL doesn't, right? Doesn't it basically? Oh, that was the other one, right? There was another one where basically don't decompile,
Yeah, I don't know.
and it was some disassembly thingy. Never mind.
Seems like something that the in-system diagnostics tools.
I haven't heard ask for it right now, so I'm going to leave
So
it.
it is something that I use in an API usage analyzer, and I think we should probably use it in API port as well, because one of the problems you have with obfuscated things is that the strings explode very badly. And so when you look at doc IDs coming from API port, for example, they have all sorts of Unicode escaping.
But it's only interesting if the obfuscators are putting it on.
So to be clear, I'm not saying we should add the attribute, but I think the fact that it's a standardized name, I think is good. So for example, that we say, if you're obfuscating, burn in a custom attribute that is named system reflection obfuscation attribute, I think that's helpful.
Okay.
Whether that's actually a real thing that we provide, but I mean, it's the easiest way to enforce consistency, right? But I mean, my K level is relatively low, but it's also super cheap, so I don't.
Let's tackle that separately. That's not my goal with this effort right now.
Usage
I'm
is
not
low, by the way.
opposed to
in case you care.
exposing the type, I just don't feel it's worth being in system reflection. That's all.
Obfuscation attribute and then escalation.
Okay. Oh, reflection next time.
I'm just seeing how much if we ran out of time, or we're gonna. I want to get through the breadth of these APIs today. At least not the
Let's move forward.
module resolving the handlers.
Depend upon our assemblies. This
That one's
it's used by assembly
Okay.
type, so I haven't done.
So which one is used by assembly? Module resolve?
Module resolve event
What
type.
does it do?
some of module resolving.
There is, I can look at it. I didn't actually look through assembly much.
So you reflect over an assembly, and then by the pure fact you're touching it, it calls the event and says, "Where's the module?"
No.
Because that would be really bad.
Module resolve event handler. Let's see how it gets used by assembly.
What's this next member? We can keep going while she's looking at module resolving.
We have an event module resolve.
but it's on assembly.
It's on assembly.
Yeah, I don't know what's different between that and I understand the assembly resolve.
And there's an assembly resolve as well,
I
yeah, that's,
understand that one. We're not exposing now, by the way. So I would say we're going to say the same for module resolve for now too.
Because module makes sense, right? Because there's no requirement that the module lives in the same place as the assembly records, right? Technically, it could be in a different folder. So in that sense, it serves the same purpose. But my question is more like, how do you use that? Like, are you expected to subscribe to the event before you ask for the module?
I'll have to double check.
And then if you didn't, your chance passed? Like, it seems...
All these, like, those are loader APIs.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
decide, basically they are on assembly load context now.
Yep.
Like,
All right, so this guy, forget about the interface.
This is module, right? I think. Yeah.
Operators, we've already talked about, is resource. Is that interesting? There's a module as possible being a resource module. I think it's sort of like, is it for like, I don't know if anyone uses it, but
I think it had very low usage. Let me check what its usage was.
do you know what it means? Is this a satellite resource assembly? Is that what it means?
Let me see how it's implemented.
So the module resolve is used a lot.
On desktop?
Module resolve would be.
No, it's like, there's only one usage, I think.
Oh, I thought you said it's. Right.
It doesn't even, it literally says 0. It doesn't, but it needs to be at least 1. Like 00027.
Let's see, is resource, how much I used. I just tries to check whether the object we're talking about is a resource. What does that even mean?
If I don't see the API, whether which one is it?
Is resource API, just after it's defined and before the
Oh.
operators.
Let's see. Did I mention that I hate these two? Okay.
Its usage is 0.01%. No usage in desktop app.
I think we shouldn't necessarily try to understand every single API. I think unless there's a maximum, there's really a problem with an API, I would
Yeah, agreed.
just leave it in and move on with life. Because that was what got us in trouble last time.
Yeah, like the next API, the get signer certificate, that's a problem with the API because I don't want to tie it to X certificate.
Which API?
Let's see here.
Oh.
Yeah, that one is something we should probably make extension or completely not have it at all.
Yes, just ignore it for now.
What about get PE kind? Because he was saying that he would want to expose.
Yeah, he was going to look at the metadata reader. Did you look at that?
For what? The portable. I tried to. The problem is that API catalog right now doesn't index fully portable assemblies because it doesn't actually.
So this is the only API that calls it get PE kind.
They will. I think portable executable kinds is also used by assembly name. Let me double check. I believe it is.
What's the image file machine?
Image file machine? Where is
The
it?
Yeah,
get
that's
PE
enough.
kind takes two out parameters. One is the PE kind and one is the image file machine.
This API was used less than 1%, so it's like a.
All right, let's for the time being until we find actually some critical.
Yeah, that
let's
is-
not add that API.
The image file machine has 4 values in it.
Yeah, we just looked at. Yeah, we just looked at.
now I kind of question our order of going through low-hanging fruit. I think we should first do the most important. Like, honestly, I think majority of the problems that we have is
We're-
the methods that take the binding flags and like.
We're almost up there. Yes.
We're also almost out of time.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing else on module here. We already talked about all the other classes of problems here, so we just don't expose PE. Right?
Also, I'm inclined to believe that those are not the most useful reflection APIs. I think those are
Yes.
probably more useful for LMR and other things that actually do things at design time.
Yeah.
Because at that point, the ship is already sailed. What are you running?
Missing is interop. So
Oh yeah, reflection missing. Did we expose that actually?
which one?
Interrupt?
I
No,
thought,
This
it's
thing is
missing.
exposed
This
via.
API is missing.
It is used to talk, I can tell you that much.
yeah, it was type.missing is there, but why? I didn't know we had a separate type for this.
Oh, that's actually a type, you're right. Yeah, the type is probably not used that much.
Type.missing, and I don't know about the type here.
It's 10% in desktop.
Missing dot value is actually used in like at least when I looked at its implementation runtime, it was used during I dispatch CCW interaction.
Yeah, it's used a lot for comment around when you want to pass an empty value, essentially.
I believe it was
And the
it's
implement,
already exposed
Is
in
it?
interrupt services. So
oh, it is missing is? All right, then forget it.
Okay, then let's move on with that. So let me say basically, let's just mark it here. Already exposed.
Used by dynamic binding.
You should say it's not really missing. It's
You guys
system
use it
runtime
Unknowingly
interrupt
so.
services.
Rename to present. It's now present in system runtime interrupt.
okay, method
That's
info.
another problem. If you have a method which takes objects.
You can use type.missing for that.
What are we missing here?
We have it exposed on type,
Yeah.
the missing object. Is
So
it
base
object?
definition, what?
Which base definition?
It's the green one. It seems like an issue with the div.
It's the issue with the diff. It's basically abstract. I've marked it as virtual for now because the Zooming project and we require it that way. But
And it's abstract virtual, not abstract. It's also amazing. What's going on there?
Which one?
He's talking about
Get base
abstract
definition.
version.
It's a new visibility modifier called abstract virtual.
yeah,
It's being overridden by the green coloring. I don't know what happened.
why it's happening though? Yeah.
It's a green override and change the visibility. The override. I don't know. Only I understand the tools that are wrote.
We wouldn't be able to expose return type custom attributes unless we expose our custom attribute provider, and I don't think we would be exposing that way.
So I custom attribute provider. I remember like the way Windows 8, we got a decent amount of complaints that it was
Yes,
missing.
I do remember them as well.
And it's usually because people want to write methods that just extract attributes and they don't want to write the calls 50,
Yeah, the vast majority is because they were writing extensions which we provided already a setup, strongly type assembly. So like,
That scenario should be covered.
So it is used virtually by all Xamarin apps, and it is used 6% API port, 6% desktop.
can we look at the interface real quick? And if it has what I think it has on, I'm thinking we should just add it and explicitly implement it on these types if we can.
I think there's nothing wrong with the interface. The only problem that the interface has is that it instantiates the attributes, right? So, which is generally something we don't want people to do. But as you said, like as soon as you do extensibility, that's something that people do.
And why does it return object arrays? Not
Because it instantiates the attributes, and in IL there's no requirement that they're.
As opposed to strongly typed, and we don't have a strongly typed generic one. When this is added.
I think he's asking about they don't return attribute, right? But there's no requirement that there are attributes. It's just a C# limitation, or restriction, or constraint, or whatever you call that.
So my vote is to add it and in the contracts explicitly implement it.
So that means you would add the APIs then, you just hide them.
And that's fine. It wouldn't override anything. It wouldn't cause any conflicts.
No, but I think you said we shouldn't have the APIs at all, right? I think.
my care level about this is low.
We didn't want to keep add them because they were going to conflict if they were directly on the extension with a different return type in this. But if they're on this interface, they're not going to conflict.
If I remember correctly, Jesse felt actually strongly about removing this one, correct? We had some meetings.
Jesse was never involved with this guy as far as I know.
Really?
Mitch might have.
I think Mitch pushed very heavily because they instantiate the attributes, so they're not really looking metadata, they're actually activating types.
What scenario are we missing by not exposing this?
So like the interactions I had with people were they would write methods that would take an iCustom attribute provider to extract information about an API, and they could basically pass in like a type, a method, a property because they all implement iCustom attribute provider.
Yep.
Like the extension thing was actually not the thing I saw the most. It was
Okay.
just literally writing.
The data you just told me, which is 100% of Xamarin apps, tells me what we should add this because we have no strong reason not to add it. Because just that gap is.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm just saying that means the API is there one way or the other.
So would we be also, we'll be exposing this attribute and we'll also be implementing this on all those members, like.
So what we do is we'll put this on there and we'll in the contract, it'll be explicitly implemented in all the places where it was exposed on desktop. We don't need, it shouldn't need require any changes to desktop because the API is already there and it'll just match itself fine. You can make them explicit in the contract and it's fine. We'll just have to add it as explicit on the new implementations on places.
Anyone to
Did you make a note about that?
I did in my text file because I mean that's here. Like I
There are too many comments here.
yeah.
We are
Scrolling down. I mean,
All right, let's.
really helping.
How far were we between the binders?
We were almost at the very top of this file.
No, we weren't.
Let's talk about
We
the
skipped,
comments that are.
we skipped a bunch to get the interface. I don't know how much we skipped.
Oh fuck. Man. Well, see, we have a depressing thing today. So
What was the? We were looking at the
The
return.
last we looked at was,
There's a property that
module.
wasn't module. It was a
Module,
module.
it
floating
was
module,
in,
scroll up.
members.
Yeah, that right. That return type custom attributes.
Yeah, that was the method. Okay.
And if we're adding the iCustom attribute provider, we can add this too. So
Yeah, that's max method info val. Yeah, that we shouldn't expose that one.
method body. Yeah, I'm not super interested in exposing that part yet.
I hope you're not using it. Wasn't it? Method body.
That's. I'm not sure I'm interested in that part right now. It's very.
It's anyway used less than 0.25% on desktop.
It's very.
I honestly like if you ignore this assembly, for which we have a better API, how would you use that?
Yeah.
I
That's it. That's people who need it. We'll make them go to the metadata reader.
If we introduce any sort of file analysis, we'll go metadata read.
exactly. So that, I think like once you ignore that, I don't see a scenario for that API.
All right. Interface de-invoke custom attribute.
Get method body of this thing off then.
We should just lump in the conversation of the invoke there with the property info one.
Certificate value and the set value thing, okay.
So which one? This one?
The invoke that's removed.
Oh,
That has
that,
takes a culture.
we don't want that anyway, right? Regardless of what it does, right?
Why is yeah? We don't want it, but I want to understand the scenario so that we decide if we need to put it in an extension or something. Why is the invoke here green? That virtual invoke.
Because probably the other one
Because
is
it
on the
is
base.
exposed by, that's
Why
exposed.
why is it not an MS core loop?
It will be, I don't know why it's not showing.
Yeah, I want to understand. Make sure we're not adding something to the contract that's not an MS.
No, I wouldn't do that. We have too many methods to add anyway.
Just make sure that
So I will do that.
show up and compat runs in some way.
The expose get current method already?
It seems.
No, did you add that to your list? If that, I don't. This is her proposed contract, by the way.
Yep, this is the proposal.
Yeah, so we shouldn't expose that
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Why?
because it's wrong most of the time.
You are asking the wrong question.
It's the same reason why we don't want to get calling assembly because based on inlining and optimizations, it returns different values.
So it uses stacked.
Essentially, it has to figure out yes.
Interesting. Okay.
We've been pushing people to use the caller info attributes for that type of things where they usually would use this. So
The compiler fills it in. Yeah.
VB late binding uses get calling assembly, and compiler knows about that. Emits particular methods with like no inlining attribute to make sure the API inside those methods still works.
I know, but that's still a JIT version. Like it's so like the Nutsy compiler and other things don't fully respect all those intrinsics too. So it's kind of a little bit weird. I'm just skeptical that all the different native codegen technologies they have actually do the right thing.
Well, no inline should be respected. I mean,
I think it should, but then
It works 95% of the time.
For now,
Method isn't considered for inlining.
for now, let's move past that one. Go. I think I agree with all that. Red method of flags. Fine. Security attributes we talked about last time. That's fine. That's a reserved mask.
Member types we'll be adding now. Should this be exposed in system reflection or perimeters?
So
Going by this
member types?
member types, this will be
Maybe not.
exposed. I would
I think it's currently only used for the filtering. stuff,
filtering, yes.
and it's tied to reflection. I would add it there in reflection for now. Oh, the thing we've been
Which
putting
purpose does primitives actually serve?
because
Is
we
it
should
shared?
share between emit and reflection.
Might,
And ideally, it would be shared with.
wait,
But doesn't
member
reflection
types might
already
be
have
used.
reflection? They use
I
the
don't
same
think
other
so.
model. Like, how would that not be shared?
There was the IL generator part was I think there's
Oh, you're right. The admin part is separate. Yeah, LCG is separate from
Yeah.
FMN. Yeah, that's true.
so I would keep them as close given that they're not shared. The premise is about sharing mostly. So
Yeah, if it doesn't need to be shared, I wouldn't put it there. Like, I mean, we can always have forward and down if we need to.
all right, so remember FO.
Info, yeah.
Oh yeah, reflected type, my favorite API.
But
We agreed to not expose it, right? So
did we agree not to? I thought we said we will be exposing it even if it might cause pain. At least that's what we did for type.
Reflected type, I'm really sure I put notes that says this API is so fundamentally messed up, and we had blog posts like 10 years ago that told people not to use it, and usage was relatively low that we said
Don't add
you
it.
have to absorb that change because you're probably asking the wrong question. Anyways.
okay, so this member of looks correct.
Which one?
It looks okay. The
Yeah,
member
that's
of
what I thought.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I reflect.
Forget about it.
Just add a new type. I do not reflect. Like, how was that even used? Was it one of those com things we did? Like, what's this narrative?
Probably.
It is exposed in system runtime interrupt services for iDispatch.
It's cow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's used by iDispatch scenario.
Oh yeah, I can see that. That's a good question though. How will we do that now?
It is exposed.
Oh, we already have it. That's what you're
Yes.
saying.
You already have it.
And they don't want to support iDispatch, by the way. But that's a different
I
question.
don't see it.
Like Combiner and DLR use case.
Wait.
Right. Okay.
So like to make sure types look like.
It's not in the contract. It's,
Yeah, that's what wait.
it's not exposed. But that's good then.
Yeah, in general, I think they don't want iDispatch support.
It's
It's kind of interesting because they ask like, can DLR combiner be used for iDispatch? But
Yeah.
Yeah, we want-
use this.
Yeah, we want you to implement it outside of this. Come on. All right, let's move on up the list here.
Valid filter criteria exception.
That looks fine. That's removing serialization stuff. Well, I mean, whether or not you expose it is a different.
Where you expose that?
we didn't already expose it.
It's part of the filtering APIs, I think. The type filter stuff.
We already actually throw this exception through implementation, but we never exposed the types. It didn't make sense not to.
This is what I'm looking at. Field info.
Yes, those three should be added to get optional modifiers and roll thing. Other than that, I think everything else is fine.
I think set value would again be something that we need to follow up on.
What's set value direct? We don't have type.
Type reference is not there.
Okay, that's not. Yeah, that's not very good.
It's a very direct setter.
It actually does the same thing as get value. I don't know why we have. I think it's just because of type reference.
So we don't expose it's not serialized?
Is not serialized just tells you whether not serialized attribute is there or not.
Didn't we expose a serialized attribute?
The serialized is different because it's a metadata bit. Not serialized is different. There's actually another attribute that actually is not a pseudo attribute.
It's not
So
serialized.
it's the same bucket as the serials, the security critical stuff in my mind. So
We have three states. Not serialized, and then not serialized and not serialized. It's 4 states.
all right, let's keep it go. I want to get to Finder. Where the F? We can make
might
it.
actually get to it.
So exception handling clause we don't expose because we don't expose method body, right? So that's not needed.
Event info should be similar actually to the rest.
Get other methods.
What is get other methods?
So there is a
IL.
dot other directive. And the IL says there is something like that.
We went through this.
Oh, it's and remove and the
And-
other things.
Is and the other.
I think there could be more than one others.
Mm.
Really?
Nobody uses that.
I don't think anyone does it either, but-
Don't be surprised it's not even working.
We did expose it in the metadata recently, so.
There's probably a port of F-sharp that adds monad variables. I don't know.
Well, for metadata reader, it's fine because it doesn't promise anything. It just says, I read this bit, it's there, and here you go. This API is supposed to actually do something.
Specifically for a skater.
Oh, is it?
No.
Okay.
But
All right, I'm fine with not adding it.
I don't care. You can always add it.
I don't have any, I've never seen it used. I have no idea what you
Even
use.
bothering like looking up usage because I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's 0.
Reserve match.
Custom attributes typed argument. That's interesting. So we don't give you constructors, we don't give you equality, although it's a struct. That seems.
Yeah, I don't know
We
what.
just get this information, we use it as of now through custom attribute data, I think. So we browse through the attributes and then try to listen to these fields, so we never really have to construct it for now.
That makes sense, but why didn't you expose the operators? Because they should always be exposed to struct. Don't member-wise comparison using reflection.
I didn't expose any of the operators in the whole of the reflection.
Yeah, I think for structs you won't though, because I mean that's a massive perfit if you don't do that.
And do we not, why wouldn't we expose the constructors here?
Yeah, that seems odd too.
It's always gonna have the default constructor, initialized constructor anyway.
All which is akin to say, give me the null representation for this struct.
But
Because we
but
are not really
they are
constructing
just
it
doing it.
ourselves. We are just,
Maybe user code doesn't need to instantiate them.
yeah, that's what. So from what I understood, there were two scenarios here. One was you actually get this built in through custom attribute data, in which case you're not instantiating it. You just want to read the values. And that's why even member info is not
so it's not useful until we introduce extensibility.
exactly.
Right.
So that's why I didn't. But
Well, you say that, but I think it's also useful probably for unit testing and other stuff where you just want to pass in handcrafted
Can
data.
you scroll up slightly? I want to see if we did the same thing for custom attribute data.
yes.
Oh, that's the named argument, sorry.
Yeah, we did it for named argument, not for the other.
So, okay, I will put a second around and say we should at least provide equality.
Yeah, I agree.
Not the operators, but equals and get hash code, yes. We technically already have them, but we just don't expose them in the contract.
Don't you want to have operators? Like, why would you not want the operators?
What?
On a value type. Like, if you don't do them, like, don't you get basically a massive perfit? Or was that equals?
Well, we have them in the implementation. That's what I was getting at, I believe.
No, it's just equals. It's not, you cannot do equals unless you define those on a struct.
Ah, that's right. But that
Well,
seems even weirder then.
I'm fine exposing these. But yes.
If they call equals, I'm fine exposing them. If they don't call equals, I would be careful. Or actually,
They're probably not going to call object equals. They're going to do field equals, which is what you want in an struct. So,
they do what? Well, but that equals should not do.
oh, you're talking about the operators. So yes.
They call equals.
Right.
Well, expose or override? Override equals.
I mean, that's to me like almost.
It is really exposed because I think we have them in the implementation, just not in the contract. So. What? The contracts are always subsets in a lot of cases. So.
You can call equals on anything, even if it's not in the contract.
This is why I said it might not even matter if it's in the contract. But
Custom attribute format exception.
yeah, what's that one about?
Tool formatted a custom attribute. Yeah, so this gets thrown when like one of the tools is reading an attribute and its formatting was incorrect.
Yes, do we throw it today?
I didn't see any usages of it internally in MS Core Lab.
What does formatting in that context mean? Like the metadata is malformed, or does it mean like you
No
call the
idea,
model-
because we didn't have any usages of it in MS Core Lab. I couldn't
If
really.
it's pure metadata problems, then I don't think it's needed. But if it's like somebody put something interesting in like the arguments for custom attribute and it gets turned, that's it. Somebody could have hit that.
Wait.
Surprised to actually find any usages of this. It's 1% in Nest. That's more than I expected.
No. It gets used one place.
If I'll just put a stick. If we throw it, then we should expose it. If we think there's something.
Okay.
That's probably a fair statement.
If we don't, then we don't.
I will take a.
Probably
I'll
worth.
browse through the whole code and see if we.
Yeah, it's probably going to be coming from the runtime, by the way.
It's
Yeah,
only
that's-
that our code throws it. It needs to be escape from our APIs,
Yeah.
correct? Like, and that's how it.
Can you-
arises.
yeah.
I don't know how you.
Yeah, can people handle it? Is there cases where people need to handle it essentially?
Is anybody catching?
Yeah.
If there is throw but there is no catch, actually you can catch it.
You can.
Well, it can be thrown from some members that we don't expose at all.
Yeah.
Like, for example, from the extensibility API. So
If it can come out of like Git custom attributes API, for example, that might be worth like handling.
Okay, I'll double check that part.
Extensions, attribute data,
Probably need to do the overrides also.
Yeah, do the overrides on that one too.
we'll do that. And we should,
That's an extensible constructor, which we don't have yet.
well, it should be an intersection or a struct. Where would you expose those?
What? The equals in Git hash.
Well, it's
Oh, sorry, it's not a structure, right? You don't have to.
well, but why? What does it mean that they are not exposed? I just don't understand.
This means that we don't have the override showing in the contract.
yes, that's what it means.
Okay, but we
Implementation
still
is
have the overridden behavior.
Potentially, we don't know. So there's a difference between the contracts, right?
I don't know. I honestly don't know what it even means for override not to show in the contract.
It just means that it's not in
You
the
can
contract.
explicitly write
They
the
can be in the
override.
implementation still. Not all overrides currently in the contracts, so.
Should we have them? So
That's
we
a-
at least our
That's a longer
metadata says what the.
That's a longer conversation. We've had many debates about that particular topic.
Is there any difference if you?
That's what I'm asking. I'm like,
There are differences.
like what?
Because apparently it's the same with virtuals, right? Like if you have mismatches in virtuals, sometimes that makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, if you don't expose over, for example, in the compiler emits a base call, you might skip one of these particular overridden methods in one of the hierarchies, for example. So that's an argument for exposing all overrides everywhere, but we currently don't have overrides for a lot of these places over there. So it's like, do we go and forcibly add overrides for everything where we don't even actually override it today, but we might in the future? And so we just have a big back and forth debate about that.
C# permits to call against the least derived and DB against the most derived. So just
Good, so you can cite different behavior. That's always good.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that. Oh, let's keep going.
la. Okay, constructor info. I think we're all fine with the globe thing.
Same thing as the others, basically.
So that's all fine.
Binding flags, would we want to expose, like this is already exposed in type extensions, I believe, and partially.
Yeah, it's exposed exactly as it is here, right? With the ones that are.
No. So to see what it didn't expose up till now, let me look at.
It doesn't expose set field, set property.
Yeah, it didn't expose those set.
Are those the values that are using that? There's other overloads that are taking on property to get to.
If we bring back binder, we'll have to bring back those as well.
Really?
Like if we expose those methods, right? Like find method or something like that. There were some APIs, right? Which we wanted to discuss
They took
based on binder.
So if I call set property, I need to pass in binding flags that says set property. That makes not much sense here.
Let me see. Binding flags is confusing.
Where are you?
Probably for comment or.
I have no idea what this is.
Property get, it's different.
Oh, you know what? I think that's, for everybody that
used
kind of makes sense,
somewhere
right?
in
Because
the-
if you say invoke member, and that is a property, right? What do you want to invoke? Setter or the getter?
It is used by invoke only.
That would make sense. It doesn't still make sense for fields, because invoking a field, what would that mean? I mean, to me, that would, I guess it's get field or set field
Get
as well.
field is also used by invoke member, by the way.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense, but
I think on the get side, it's traditionally from VBA time, when you don't know whether it's a property or a method, you combine the flags of invoke and get, saying like do whatever it is.
or you say invoke member and you say set field or set property, and then
On the set side, I don't know because their role is distinct. You know, you're invoking or setting. So
actually that's not completely outrageously stupid. Then that's actually somewhat sensible.
Get field gets used by invoke members, all the overridden ones. Set field is currently used only by default binder, which we can choose not to expose. But it's weird to expose get field and not set field. And the same is true with methods.
I think I can agree with all the ones that are, of those that are. The red ones are still interesting, I guess, for binder purposes. Exact binding or.
Exact binding makes sense if we expose binder holistically. Like if we give people the option of extending binder. But if we want to use just the default binder, we probably wouldn't want to.
Let's go up to the binder then.
Use exact binding today, because I mean,
I would expect everything to be exact binding.
yeah, but do pass it in. Like what I would avoid is like we don't expose it, we force everybody to remove exact binding from their code. Then we make it extensible, not everybody. Oh, by the way, the call you removed a year ago, please add them all back now, because otherwise you get weird behavior.
So for the binder, if we make it an empty type, we have to figure out if we're going to make it real later.
Yeah, so the reason why I thought this is the, like, so I'll tell you the pros and cons. So I discussed this with Ati, Nick, and like kind of got some context why people do not like binder in general. And the main reason was because the default binder that we use currently, it has a lot of policy in place and a lot of backward compatibility issues that we kind of just have to deal with. And it's a hard to test code, so it was essentially not something we wanted to expose. If we choose to expose it, we would run into issues like it depends upon culture info and other stuff, so we cannot expose it directly through system reflection. We'll have to expose it through a separate contract or in one of those type extensions contract that take dependency on globalization. For most practical scenarios, people use binder with a null call. The only scenario if we do not expose a empty binder would be if somebody wants to extend the behavior of the binder and basically give their own implementations to bind to field and other things. And because in reflection we are kind of not exposing extensibility in general, I do not know whether we value that behavior as much.
I don't worry about the extensibility part right now, for sure.
So if we do not worry about that, then exposing an empty binder kind of provides all the scenarios that we are thinking of. Because if you provide null there, we'll be using default binder, which is present in KN and both.
So you know me?
Although if we expose binder in reflection right now and in tomorrow we want to expose it, either we'll have to take system globalization dependency in reflection itself, or we'll have to play the games around it.
Or we write another
Separate contract.
real binder that inherits from this binder and actually exposes the members. And
Yeah, like we'll have to,
use that mechanism.
but that will require changes to desktop and other things as well.
Agreed. Yeah.
But I'm not sure it will work because now you wouldn't have methods on this,
Yep.
on the base type.
You'll be creating new
But
methods.
APIs would take binder and what they would then downcast and
Yep.
like. So what's the alternative? So I understand we can add the empty binder. What's the alternative? If we
Alternate.
don't do it, how would we add those methods that everybody wants to use but they don't find
It
them?
was unclear how many people actually want to use it, frankly.
Well, those methods on
So those methods, how would they use it now?
No. If we don't expose binder,
Okay.
right? Because one option we have empty binder.
Uh-huh.
We know that, and we kind of understand the pros and cons.
Uh-huh.
What is the other
We'll
alternative?
have to add overloads for those which do not take binder.
What would the overloads look like?
Not having binder in the
Do we need
argument.
all the other arguments?
Binding flags get used.
Yes. What about the others?
What were the other ones? I think binder was the only thing that was controversial there.
We'd have to add the overloads, which means today, in order to support it, we'd have to put them as extensions.
Yes.
We can't change the core right
On
now
the desktop.
for this contract revision.
Oh, you mean so they work on desktop?
Right.
Yeah.
It was on type, right?
That will mean if you move to extensibility, you potentially have problems, right?
Yeah, if we put them as an extension method, we'd have to just, I think we could work around the perfect problems, but like we'd have to take special
No.
care to do it.
It's initially that we would have perf problems. We could always set APIs that those extensions would.
But I
call
think
into.
we can get around those, because we're gonna compile this extensions library directly into Siemens Core Loop on all the platforms that's there, so we could get around that too. We would call that binder overload.
So they take binding flags, calling conventions, types, parameter modifier, and binder.
Can you like show on the screen one of those methods?
Just type would have type done.
Yeah, it's a bad.
System that type probably will work. Or just go to the index. We'll be able to see this scroll bar, right?
Yeah.
That would be the easiest thing.
And then you said system type.
Yep. Let's go to the get constructor or find interfaces.
The methods or constructors are a little more interesting, not less interesting.
Exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
String types, name types, parameters. Okay, so
The key one missing in the base is the binding flags.
basically, there's one that is called, let's look at get method, that takes a string, an array of types, and parameter modifiers. If we add an overload that takes additional parameter binding flags, we would be good.
Well, if we could add another one, it
Yes.
still require people to change their code, which,
I understand,
Yeah.
but it's basically we could edit it as the last parameter of the
Of the
of
name
the last
parameter
method.
modifier.
last get method, correct? That's it.
or we inject it in the middle if we, because binding flags is generally the second, second argument, either way.
But I'm saying, like, in the past we discussed, like, if we start like shuffling parameters, first it's not that great for IntelliSense, and secondly we potentially can run into some issues in the future. Or
Well, I'm
or
saying
now.
like most majority of these overloads have binding flags as the second argument.
And by the way, get constructor doesn't have one of those, like, doesn't have the binding.
Yeah,
flag
get method,
parameter modifier.
Get method actually has more than the others actually.
Can we see get
If
constructor?
you go to get constructor, it should be.
Oh, this one just has types, correct? Oh, why does it? Why
There
there's
is no
no
name.
load that takes parameter modifiers?
Or names.
Types.
It has one in combination with binder, so.
Name
So
is,
yeah,
name is fine.
Yeah, it doesn't need name because they're all the same
But
thing.
why parameter modifiers are not?
Parameter modifiers are there, but they're with the binder one.
You mean you have to pass the?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah,
There is no good answer, honestly.
but I feel like we could really fix the, like make the APIs nice, just edit, like make all of them consistent. Like I would actually add a overload here, get constructed these types, parameter modifiers, and then binding flags as the last parameter.
We can do that in this iteration.
Yeah.
What is it?
We can be able to do it in this iteration.
Why not?
You can't change.
Because we
the
cannot
desktop.
change desktop.
We wouldn't. We can call into the implementation of the desktop.
We have to put it as
From
an
the
extension
extension.
method.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's still another problem, which is if we do it in an extension method, like I want to bind this exact overload because I don't want people changing their have to change their signature code. So they're all passing null to this thing right now.
So let's talk about one thing first, which is, you say we can use an extension method, but the extension already shipped the framework too, right?
Type extensions hasn't.
So we would only put it in type extension, which is what people consider the legacy thing.
That's right.
and go away.
That's what that's the other option.
So you know what? If we only care about source portability, and since it's a new API, we could add an overload that takes an object and tell people you always pass null. And it's in the legacy. It's basically in the contract that is for porting code. So we kind of don't care. I mean, it's not an ideal API, but it just compiles, and we don't have to do anything with Finder.
And you call the parameter binder.
No, you call this parameter please
for-
pass null.
Well, we should call the thing like that.
But you have to call it binder
Because otherwise
because
you can't find it.
for people who
Maybe,
explain parameters.
maybe.
Because I mean, I actually like that one because what that means, if you ever were to expose the binary without conflicting types, I could live with that. I mean, we're not binary compatible anyway, right? It's all about source compatible most of the time. So if the call set just compiles and it doesn't prevent us from adding the right classes in the right places, I think that would be, it's as targeted as it gets, I guess.
We'll be exposing that in type extensions
Yes.
contract.
Yes, no wacky APIs in core contract.
So if we agree that we can add those other overloads to the core at some point, because we still want to be able to break type, not require type extensions to be included in for people to get the same scenarios.
But I would add nice APIs that actually don't even use binding flags. Like add basically an API where you can specify visibility, member type, and
Well, that's a whole other ballgame. I'm not sure we're going to tackle, but
But since if we would be adding completely new APIs,
we'd be adding new overloads, which is a lot different than adding a whole bunch more.
No, there
APIs.
would be overloads.
Yes, but
It's just
and whether or not I wouldn't throw in something other than binding flags, I'm not sure I'd want to. Just
But we
because
can decide later.
it's going to cost.
Yeah.
But I actually kind of want to make a stake in the ground. If we're going to put these as an type extension today, I want to file an issue that says, add these particular overloads to reflection for next.
And when you say these particular ones,
The overloads you're talking about, but with binding flags.
Yeah, sure.
So like I want to basically the pretense of adding these. This is for source compat and type extensions. We're going to add these ones to the core contract to make the scenarios available for without the type extensions for future people who want to change.
Yeah, depends what you mean by specific overloads, because I really would like to look what it would mean to have an overload that takes types and then set of enums that actually are easy to understand and deal with. But we can look into it.
Adding another enum that's binding flag is already a mess. I agree, but adding another one's not going to help solve it. It's just going to add another duplicate way of doing it, and people are going to be like, "Is that equivalent to non-public binding flags?" Is that I don't know. Like,
I don't know,
yeah. So I'm not convinced about another enum,
but we can discuss this separately.
But what I'll suggest is that we file an issue on GitHub for future that says add things to the core reflection contract for to this overloads to accomplish the scenarios where people
Correct. I
are calling
agree.
the other ones.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
and then I'm fine. I think we're basically going to add extension methods and type extensions itself. Where the binder overload is, put object, and so source compat should be fine. Yeah. I think I can live with that.
So, all right, so plan is we will expose the overloads that take binder as object and make those extension methods In system reflection dot type extensions.
Bobby, was there anything above binder other than
Um,
assembly?
No.
Assembly
We
was
start with
less-
assembly name after binder. Well, before binder.
Assembly, you're not proposing any changes,
I
right?
haven't.
But assembly, we're gonna add a couple.
Assembly will need some
I wanna quickly
updates.
Look at that too. 'Cause I think there's only a couple APIs I wanna add to assembly.
There are a lot missing though, like that I didn't have much.
I think most of them are around assembly loading, which we don't really wanna expose for the last, we just stick with people.
You will expose the overloads that take binder as object and make those extension methods system runtime type extensions, which is a compact contract. We should add real overloads that take binding flex, but no binder the next time we can add APIs to the flex or the .NET framework.
I think Wes worded it slightly different.
Yeah, we need to add overloads to basically allow people to accomplish the same scenarios in the core contract. Whether or not they're binding flags or something else is that we can determine later.
Or did you say allow people?
Allow people to accomplish the same scenarios in the core contract.
Alright. User agreement.
Go to assembly.
Already at the top. But that's probably because I just jumped from down here. Right?
I think use the navigation bar. That'll be the easiest.
He's got it.
Actually, scroll a bit to the left so you can see what I'm doing here. So binder, assembly name proxy,
Yeah, that's promoting stuff. Nope.
assembly name flags, enable JIT compiler optimize, JIT compiler optimize.
I don't know about that one.
I-
For now, like, enums are not blocking an issue anyway, so.
We should still take a look why we didn't expose them because it seems odd.
I was just thinking about still the get constructor, get methods. So there were overloads that show they were taking an array of types, and they were still showing as red, but they don't take binding flags. Can we just add them?
No, those are on type. So the diff doesn't show up because.
Yeah, that
those
was
are
the
running on
type info. We'll be exposing. to the
Oh, okay, but they are there.
We'll
Okay.
see those
Okay.
guys coming, yes.
All right. This is assembly name.
The red ones are the ones you didn't add.
I have like for assembly and assembly name. I didn't create any proposal right now.
Oh, okay, so you didn't
So
change
these
it.
are all like missing and the way they stand
Let me
today.
see if there's anything that I think you should. Escaped code base is one we probably should just expose because people depended on it for better or worse, and we've added a location already.
Assembly name?
That's assembly name, sorry. I was thinking assembly. I don't know.
I think assembly name you reviewed the death out of this API and we basically tried to, I think it was mostly the area concern, but we didn't want to have
Yes.
culture info. Didn't
Yes.
want to expose code base or escape code base in the assembly name, which makes sense. Hash algorithm, I think we talked about it, said it's actually not used.
What's
strong
wrong
name
with the
key pair
code base?
is not, sorry?
What's wrong with the code base? It's telling just the location of the assembly, right?
Yeah, but that makes the assumption that you're loading it from that path. and
Well,
assembly
but
is
we've
much
already
more
decided that's not a problem for assembly. We exposed the location and now we're gonna,
So I get that, but for the name, because that's weird.
doesn't
You wanna
matter.
load it from the path, you want to load it from the path. You want to load it
Yeah,
from the
but
name.
that's the same semantics it has on desktop. It's not always gonna be set to something.
My point was that if you call an API that takes an assembly name and then you basically pass in a code base, what do you think the API does? Does it resolve by name or does it
It creates
actually
a new
look at
assembly
this?
with the code base properly.
But no, but what are you doing with it? You're passing it to an API that says load by name. Like what do you want the semantics?
It's more interesting to me from like a perspective of I get an assembly name and I wanna look at, and I wanna have an idea of where it came from. So you have the code base name.
Well, losing the room, I think. So that was
Yeah.
like-
The other people are coming at
To
lunch.
me, the only one that looks like very benign is get assembly name from assembly file.
That one we moved to assembly load context. That's not a API, shouldn't be. So.
But that's not even, it has nothing to do with loading.
It
It's
does.
static.
Yes, but it requires the binder and loader in order to figure out the right
Right.
information, I believe.
Also, assembly file is not a fully qualified path. Is that
It might be a.
Guys online, I need to shut
I
down
don't remember,
now.
well, I know we exposed that exact thing on assembly load context.